So I'm going to preface this by telling you guys that I discovered this style by accident. I was doing like a bit of a brain dump and just exploring design styles because I always want to offer you guys new and interesting and unique design styles. And when this one came up, I was like, I have never heard of this, but it looked oddly familiar. Saved by the Bell, anyone? Yes, this style is called Memphis Design Style. And yes, if you've ever seen Saved by the Bell, the classic, I feel like they did a remake, the 90s version, then you might recognize this very iconic style. However, I didn't know what it was. I had never heard of it. It's not probably one of the more common design styles that has, kind of crossed the paths of design styles. But I was so intrigued, I had to find out more, which means we're covering Memphis Design Style today. This is really a postmodern style that came after that mid-century modern, which, as we know, has a very nice, cozy aesthetic to it, and very clean lines and very minimalist. And this was like, psh, we're done with that. Like, honestly, if design styles had an attitude, this one's like, get out my face. I'm not doing this anymore. It was like it was breaking free from the minimalist aesthetic, essentially. So it was born in the 80s, which I feel like, is perfectly fit with the fashion trends of the 80s. I feel like whenever we think of the 80s as a style, we think of this bold, bright, patterned design style, whether it's fashion or interiors. So that's when it did start. So this was a collaborative design group of architects and designer. So while the name might lead you to believe that the Memphis Design Group got its start in Tennessee, it actually emerged from Milan, Italy. Really? I was actually really shocked about that. So the name was inspired by Bob Dylan's song, Stuck Inside of Mobile with Memphis Blues Again. I've never heard of it, but if you are a Bob Dylan fan, maybe you have. So apparently the first time that the group got together, this song was playing on repeat. Hence the name, Memphis Design Style, or Memphis Design Group. So the newly anointed Memphis group aimed to create a style that really went against that minimalism trend that we had seen, in the 70s, and then the clean mid-century modern lines that we had seen in the 50s and 60s. So really, 50s, 60s, 70s, 3 decades, we saw very minimalist, clean aesthetics. So it was a huge, U-turn into a left turn, right turn, 180-degree turn into a different direction. I was trying to make a, analogy there. Anyways, so the main designer of this style who really spearheaded the movement was Ettore Sottsass. Hold on. Ettore Sottsass. Sottsass? How do I say that? I'm going to put it on the screen. Ettore, I feel like it's Ettore. Orator. Sugar. Sottsass. It's probably Italian. Okay. So this trend was first seen in 1981 at the Milan Furniture Fair. It showcased 55 ornamental pieces that infused geometric shapes, which really did have that Art Deco vibe built into it. So it had that bold pop art quality to it, which definitely, is reminiscent, except to the extreme, of that Art Deco kind of look. So you'll kind of see some touches of Art Deco in this style as well. And it really, the color palette is, I like maximalism and I like color. This style for me personally would be I think it would be hard, but I feel like you could do a modern take on it, change it up, but definitely bold, really, really bold. Whatever you're thinking, up that. Bold. So one of the interesting things when I was reading about this style was that the movement was really never intended to be timeless. It really was designed to have an emotional response to the look of this design style. It wasn't even meant to be mainstream, which I thought was really interesting as well. So it was really driven by form before function. Whereas in the past, and I've talked about this in other videos, we talk about form and function. So this one actually really wanted to kind of like break the rules a little bit and really look at doing this from a different vantage point in a design sense. So it was really recognized by its bold colors, clashing patterns, and very radical approach to design. So this style is not for the faint of heart. I think I've emulated that. It is bold. And I know it's like so like totally different than anything I've ever covered, but that's why I had to cover it, because it's different and it's interesting, and I love learning about something that's new. For me, it's not new. Obviously, it's from the 80s, but I didn't know about it. So what's interesting is it really still to this day, when you see this style brought in, it just really challenges that status quo of design. And it's really fearless in the way that it just, you know, contradicts other styles. And it just is a mismatch of a bunch of different things that somehow work oddly well together. It's like, because they don't work, they work. So one of the, you know, standout features of this design style is the use of monochrome grid patterns, geometric shapes of varying scales. They have those squiggly lines that you'll see overlaid. Also colorful terrazzos, which were really popular. It's funny because I feel like I was just watching a Netflix show recently. It's the one, the June Motel, and they brought in a very colorful terrazzo, and I feel like that works with this Memphis design style, like that look that they did. But yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I did see this colorful terrazzo. Terrazzo is a really beautiful stone, and I do think it's actually, or material, I think we're gonna see it come back a lot more, you know, in design. So anyways, but basically it can be really described as like a bit garish in its look and style and aesthetic, and that's intentional, very intentional. So some of these places that we've seen this style, I mentioned in the top of this video, and that is Saved by the Bell. You really saw that aesthetic, and I feel like that's kind of that quintessential 80s into the early 90s vibe with that look, as well as, you know, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air also had a lot of that aesthetic in it. So we did see it in the mainstream, which definitely wasn't their intention, but I don't think it went mainstream into the sense like you don't often see somebody's homes, you know, decorated with this style. Maybe if you have it, cool. But I'm saying like it was more of like, you know, in a television setting, I think it translates really well on camera, and that's probably why they opted to go with that, because of its bold factors. But I definitely think it's more of like, you could see it in like a hotel, or you could see it in, you know, a commercial setting. Like it's a very unique look. So what's really interesting that it really did make an impact in pop culture. So some really notable names that just fully embraced this style is David Bowie. So David Bowie actually had more than 400 Memphis Design Group pieces. Like a lot, like he loved this style. I feel what's really interesting with David Bowie is you could definitely see how that also translated to his own personal style. Like when I think of a David Bowie cover, I actually now can see the correlation between the Memphis design and like his own personal aesthetics. So it doesn't, you know, surprise me now doing some research that he really embraced this style. Like he loved this style. And oh, I was watching, I think it was, I feel like it was Monica Church, a YouTuber, and she was doing this house tour. It wasn't his house, but it was a house tour, and somebody had a mural of David Bowie in their pool, and I thought like on the floor of the pool, and like from an air, it was flippin' cool, just from a like really interesting architectural thing. It was really, really interesting. Yeah, if I can find which video that was, I'll put it linked below, but it was a while ago, so I don't know if I'll remember which one it was. But anyway, side note. Okay, another really popular figure from pop culture that embraced this style was Karl Lagerfeld, which I think if you are into fashion, you'll have heard of his name before. So he actually was a big fan and bought the entirety of the Sass's first collection. Sot Sass. I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry. But of the main designer, he actually bought the entirety of their first collection. So I thought that was really, really interesting. So what was interesting about the style, as I mentioned before, their goal wasn't really to be mainstream, and it really wasn't, in the sense of overall commercially, it just was not, it didn't do very well. The general public didn't buy in, you know what I mean? So really what happened was the demand for the style just kind of dwindled away, which makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if people don't want to, like, you can look at it and appreciate something, but it doesn't mean you necessarily want to live with it. And I think I think this was more of like an art, or like that's why like very artistic type of people really embraced it, than like Art Deco, which did have those pops, but was curated more to like the masses, if that makes sense. So after just 6 years, in 1988, the Memphis Design Group was no longer. I know, isn't that sad? Like, it was so short-lived, but I feel like the power of the style definitely outlived the group. What I think is really interesting is we're still seeing an influence from this very short period of time where this design aesthetic was first introduced. We're still seeing influences and touches of it that have gone on through the ages. So some of those characteristics that we still see, you know, brought in today that are, you know, really signature to this look are laminate and terrazzo materials. Memphis designers use materials often found on floors to fabricate tables and decor accessories. Squiggles, which I thought was interesting. So this characteristic of the style is squiggles. This was designed by Sot Sass in 1978. So that abstract squiggles, or the bacterio print, is that supposed to sound like bacteria? Bacterio? Interesting. Anyways, it's their trademark pattern. I had a thought there, bacterio. Like, honestly, is it supposed to like squiggle? And like when you look at sign, anyways, I think with everything in the last 2 years, we've seen more pictures of squiggles from labs than we ought to know about, right? Ahead of their time. So another major characteristic is color blocking. In the Memphis Design Style, you won't find single color furniture. Their furniture pieces were, you know, say a yellow chair with black legs and maybe a striped back, and maybe green arms. Like, every single piece of the chair would have a different color. So arms, sides, back, legs, different color blocking. That was their thing. Out of the box shapes. So the Memphis design really favored chunky geometric shapes like circles and triangles and jagged edges and asymmetrical configurations. They really also embraced, I think you're going to be not shocked by this at all, bold patterns. So they really liked repetitive geometric patterns made out of triangles, squiggles, sharp zigzags, speckles, and dots in various contrasting colors that were placed kind of haphazardly all around. Like, no real like rhyme or reason to it. And it's really this that contributed to that kind of chaotic feel of the style, which I'm sure you've figured out by now. And then black and white stripes. So something we've seen, black and white is really big in Art Deco as well, like black and white patterning. So this actually would use this as well to really complement all of that bright color palette that you would see. So you would have, you know, the black and white stripes and then the color palette with bright neon and pastel shades. So it really was part of the look. And that's the Memphis Design Style. I know, super bold. It's like one of those ones that once I saw it, I was super excited to talk about it. Like, totally not my style, but it doesn't have to be my style for me to just really think it's cool and interesting. And I love the story behind it. I love that, you know, it was only 6 years that these designers and architects were together in this Memphis Design Group. I love the fact that they're from Milan, Italy, but they picked the name based off a Bob Dylan song. The whole thing is awesome. And somebody should do a movie on this. I feel like it's probably like a cool story. And maybe they were smoking something. I don't know. All right, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. I really do appreciate it. I think if you like this video or you like somewhat of this style, definitely check out my Art Deco video. You'll probably enjoy that one next. A little bit more, easier to bring into a space. All right, guys, until next time, bye.